Run Silent, Run Deep was not just another classic submarine film. It was a submerged pressure cooker of generational warfare, where the real battle was not against the Japanese fleet, but between two of Hollywood's biggest stars on a soundstage that became their personal battlefield. What audiences saw was a taut tale of naval warfare and obsession. What they did not see was the brutal behind the scenes war between a dying king and a reigning prince, a production so toxic it made the on screen conflict look like a friendly disagreement. Today, we are diving to crushed depths to uncover 20 shocking facts about Run Silent, Run Deep that will forever change how you see this legendary film. And stick around for our bonus fact about the real life American war hero whose secrets the film is built upon. Number 20, the on-set war between Gable and Lancaster was legendary. The film was not just a story of command conflict, it was a real-life war for control between Clark Gable and Burt Lancaster. This was not a simple disagreement, it was a clash of two Hollywood titans representing two different eras. What audiences did not know was that Gable, the undisputed king of old Hollywood, resented Lancaster's power as both co-star and producer. Lancaster in turn found Gable's work ethic to be lazy and his diva-like demands infuriating. The set became a cold war zone. Gable would often refuse to shoot past 5 p.m. sharp, while Lancaster, as producer, needed to stay on schedule and on budget. This created a tension so thick you could feel it in every scene they share. The animosity was not hidden, it was a raw, open wound on the production that director Robert Wise had to navigate daily, turning the submarine set into a battleground for two massive egos. Number 19, Gable refused to be sprayed with water for a key scene. Clark Gable was not just a star, he was a star who refused to suffer for his art, creating a major conflict during the filming of the depth charge sequences. To simulate the terrifying reality of a submarine under attack, the effects crew rigged pipes to spray the actors with high-pressure water. What audiences did not know was that when it came time for Gable's close-ups, he flatly refused. He did not want his carefully maintained hair and makeup ruined, arguing that the audience's imagination could do the work. This decision infuriated director Robert Wise and Burt Lancaster, who had both endured the water for their own shots. To accommodate Gable, the crew had to shoot his scenes dry, then intercut them with shots of the rest of the cast being drenched. This compromise is visible in the final film where Gable remains surprisingly dry and composed while his crew is being tossed around in a torrent of water. It was a classic example of a star's power overriding the director's vision for realism. Number 18, Lancaster used his producer power to undermine Gable. Burt Lancaster was not just an actor playing a first officer. He was a producer actively working to undermine his star. The tension between the two leads escalated beyond personal dislike into a tactical power struggle. What audiences did not know was that Lancaster, through his production company, Hecht Lancaster, had significant control over the script and editing. He allegedly used this power to subtly shift the film's focus. He pushed for more scenes highlighting his character's competence and leadership while subtly trimming moments that gave Gable's character, Captain Richardson, more sympathetic or heroic shading. The result is a film where Lancaster's Lieutenant Bledsoe often comes across as more capable and level-headed than the obsessive, flawed captain. This was not just acting, it was a producer using the film itself as a weapon in his off-screen war with his co-star, a battle he arguably won. Number 17, Gable's health was failing during the physically demanding shoot. Clark Gable was not just playing an aging commander, he was a man in declining health, and the physical toll of the production was immense. At 57, Gable was a heavy smoker and drinker, and the grueling conditions inside the hot, claustrophobic submarine set took a severe toll on him. What audiences did not know was that Gable suffered from a chronic cough and was often short of breath during takes. He had difficulty with the physical aspects of the role, like climbing ladders or simulating the impact of explosions. The cast and crew were acutely aware of his frailty, which created a strange dynamic where they were both frustrated by his diva behavior and concerned for his well-being. His performance, often criticized as being tired or phoned in, was in many ways a reflection of his actual physical state. The film stands as a poignant, unintentional document of a screen legend's final, difficult years. Number 16. The submarine interiors were so realistic. They caused panic. The film's submarine set was not just a detailed replica, it was a claustrophobic masterpiece of psychological terror. The production designers, working from real Navy blueprints, built a full-scale, multi-level interior of a Gado-class submarine. What audiences did not know was that the set was so complete and convincing that it caused genuine anxiety for the cast and even some visitors. The tight, cramped quarters, the low ceilings, and the constant hum of the ventilation system created an environment that felt terrifyingly real. Several actors reported feeling genuine panic and claustrophobia after spending long days inside the set. Burt Lancaster, an advocate for realism, insisted the set be as authentic as possible, a decision that paid off in spades on screen but made the filming process a psychological ordeal. The set itself became another character in the film, a steel tomb that mirrored the psychological pressure cooker of the command conflict. Number 15. The film's famous down-the-scope line was improvised. One of the key, most iconic moments in submarine cinema was not in the script. The tense command, down the scope, has become synonymous with the genre, but its origin lies in a moment of on-set inspiration. What audiences did not know was that during the filming of a particularly tense scene, Clark Gable, frustrated with the scripted dialogue, ad-libbed the sharp, guttural command. Director Robert Wise recognized the power of its simplicity and authenticity. He immediately called for another take, instructing Gable to deliver the line again. The crew captured it, and it instantly became the film's signature moment. It is a testament to Gable's star power and instincts that a single, unscripted word could define an entire genre. Number 14, the author of the novel served as the film's technical advisor. The film's commitment to authenticity was not just for show, it was guaranteed by the presence of the man who wrote the book. Captain Edward L. Beach Jr., the highly decorated World War II submarine commander who wrote the novel Run Silent, Run Deep, was hired as the film's primary technical advisor. What audiences did not know was that Beach was a relentless presence on set, ensuring every detail, from the handling of the torpedo data computer to the sailor's jargon, was 100% accurate. He would frequently correct actors' posture and dialogue, and even instructed the special effects team on the exact way a depth charge explosion should look and sound underwater. His involvement gave the film a level of realism that was unprecedented for its time. However, his insistence on accuracy sometimes clashed with the dramatic needs of the screenplay, leading to behind-the-scenes debates about whether to prioritize realism or cinematic storytelling. Number 13. The underwater torpedo shots were a major technical achievement. The thrilling shots of torpedoes running hot and straight toward their targets were not models on a string, they were a groundbreaking special effects triumph. In 1958, filming realistic underwater sequences was a massive technical challenge. What audiences did not know was that the effects team, led by Arnold Buddy Gillespie, built a special, high-speed underwater camera rig. They then filmed small, detailed models of torpedoes in a massive water tank at the studio, using precise motorized rigs to control their speed and direction. The resulting footage was then composited with shots of the Japanese ships. The seamless integration of these effects was so convincing that audiences believed they were watching real footage. This work earned the film an Academy Award nomination for Best Special Effects and set a new standard for naval warfare sequences in cinema, a standard that would influence films for decades to come. Number 12, the film's ending was changed to be more hopeful than the book. The film's dramatic and heroic conclusion was not the one originally written by the author. In Captain Beach's novel, the ending is far more ambiguous and bleak. After sinking the Akikaza, the United States ship Nurka is left crippled, low on air, and with its fate uncertain. What audiences did not know was that United Artists, fearing a downbeat ending would alienate audiences, demanded a change. The studio insisted on a more conventional, triumphant conclusion. A new scene was written and filmed, showing the crippled Nurka being met by a friendly American plane, signaling their imminent rescue. This alteration fundamentally changed the story's tone, transforming a tale of Pyrrhic victory into a more straightforward Hollywood triumph. Author Edward Beach was reportedly unhappy with the change, feeling it softened the brutal reality of submarine warfare, but he was overruled by the commercial demands of the studio. Number 11. Burt Lancaster performed a dangerous stunt himself. Burt Lancaster was not just a pretty face and a savvy producer, he was a genuine athlete who insisted on doing his own stunts, much to the concern of the crew. In a key sequence where Lieutenant Bledsoe must escape a flooding compartment, Lancaster's character is seen swimming through a narrow, dark tunnel filled with water. What audiences did not know was that Lancaster refused to use a stunt double for this dangerous shot. The water was cold, the space was incredibly tight, and the risk of getting stuck or panicking was very real. The crew was on high alert, with safety divers standing by just out of camera range. Lancaster performed the take in a single breath, his powerful swimming background from his circus days serving him well. The result is a moment of visceral, heart-pounding realism that no stunt double could have replicated, but it was a gamble that could have ended in tragedy. Number 10, the film was a secret and controversial Navy recruiting tool. The film's impact was not just on box office receipts, it was a powerful and slightly unnerving piece of propaganda for the United States Navy. In the late 1950s, the Navy was struggling to attract recruits for the silent service, which was seen as less glamorous than aviation or surface ships. What audiences did not know was that the Navy Department, while cooperating on the film, saw it as a massive, unpaid recruiting ad. They loved the film's portrayal of submariners as elite, intelligent heroes. However, they were deeply uncomfortable with the film's central plot, a successful mutiny and the glorification of an officer who disobeys a direct order. Behind closed doors, naval officials debated whether the film's exciting depiction of submarine life outweighed the dangerous message it sent about, questioning command. They ultimately decided the positive public relations was worth the risk, and the film was shown at recruitment centers for years. A controversial masterpiece used to lure young men into a life their own film taught them to question. Number 9, the film was a box office smash, but critics were divided. Run Silent, Run Deep was not just a critical darling, it was a commercial juggernaut that surprised everyone. The film was a massive hit with audiences who were drawn to its tense action and the star power of its two leads. It became one of the highest grossing films of 1958. What audiences did not know was that critical opinion was split right down the middle. Many praised it as a masterpiece of the war genre, hailing its realism and psychological depth. However, a significant number of critics, particularly those aware of the off-screen feuds, found it to be a cold and mechanical exercise. They argued that the tension between Gable and Lancaster, while real, created a lack of on-screen chemistry that made the central conflict feel less compelling. This division between popular success and mixed critical reception has ensured the film's legacy remains complex and debated to this day. Number 8, the Japanese ship was not based on a real vessel. The film's central antagonist, the Japanese destroyer Akikaza, was not based on a specific real-life ship. It was a composite character created for the story. What audiences did not know was that the name Akikaza, Red Wind, was a real name used by the Imperial Japanese Navy for a destroyer, but the ship in the film was a fictional creation. The designers gave it characteristics of several different Japanese destroyer classes to create a formidable and believable foe. This creative license allowed the filmmakers to craft a perfect enemy ship, one that was fast, well-armed, and seemingly invincible, making Captain Richardson's obsession with it more psychologically compelling. By not being tied to a specific historical vessel, the film could bend the rules of naval warfare for dramatic effect, creating a nemesis that was more myth than reality. Number 7. The film's score was a departure for its composer. The film's tense, nervous musical score was not the work of a typical Hollywood composer. It was composed by Franz Waxman, a German émigré famous for his lush, romantic scores for films like Bride of Frankenstein and Sunset Boulevard. What audiences did not know was that Run Silent, Run Deep represented a dramatic shift in his style. For this film, Waxman abandoned his sweeping melodies in favor of a modernist, atonal approach. He used dissonant strings, sharp brass stabs, and a relentless, pulsating rhythm to create a constant state of anxiety. This minimalist and aggressive score was a perfect reflection of the film's claustrophobic tension. It was a bold, artistic choice for Waxman, and it proved he was a master of any musical style, cementing the score as a classic example of how music can be used to create psychological suspense. Number 6. The film launched the modern submarine movie genre. Run Silent, Run Deep was not just a successful war film, it was the blueprint for every submarine movie that followed. Before 1958, Submarine, films were often stiff, formulaic, and focused on the hardware. What audiences did not know was that this film changed everything. By focusing on the intense psychological pressure, the claustrophobic environment, and the complex command dynamics, it created a new template for the genre. Its DNA can be seen clearly in films like Das Boot, The Hunt for Red October, and United States 571. The emphasis on the crew's fear, the relentless tension of silent running, and the moral ambiguity of command all started here. Director Robert Wise and his team did not just make a great movie. They wrote the rulebook for how to make a submarine thriller, a rulebook that is still being followed today. Number 5, Clark Gable wore a hairpiece and it was a constant problem. Clark Gable's iconic look was not entirely his own. The king of Hollywood was famously balding and relied on a carefully crafted hairpiece for his film roles. What audiences did not know was that this hairpiece was a major headache during the production of Run Silent, Run Deep. The hot, humid conditions inside the submarine set, combined with the spraying water effects, constantly threatened to dislodge his toupee. The hair and makeup department was on constant alert, and Gable had to be very careful about his movements, especially during the more physical scenes. This is another reason for his reluctance to be sprayed with water. The fear of his hairpiece coming off on camera was a very real and embarrassing possibility. This behind-the-scenes vulnerability of the powerful star adds a layer of tragic irony to his performance as a tough, commanding submarine captain. Number 4, the film's title was almost changed to something much blander. The film's iconic title, Run Silent, Run Deep, was not the original choice. It was a line taken directly from the novel, and it perfectly captures the essence of submarine warfare. What audiences did not know was that the marketing department at United Artists initially found the title too cryptic and confusing for a mainstream audience. They pushed for a more generic, action-oriented title like Depth Charge or The Submarine. Director Robert Wise and Burt Lancaster fought hard to keep the original title, arguing that its poetic and menacing quality was essential to the film's identity. They eventually won the battle, and the studio relented. It was a crucial victory, as the original title has become one of the most famous and evocative titles in cinema history, perfectly setting the tone for the tense psychological drama that unfolds. Number 3, the film ignored the brutal reality of submarine life. The film's depiction of submarine warfare, while technically accurate, was a sanitized version of the real thing. To get the production approved by the United States Navy and to satisfy the censorship codes of the era, the filmmakers had to leave out the most brutal aspects of life aboard a World War II submarine. What audiences did not know was that the reality was far worse. The air on a submerged submarine quickly became foul, thick with the smell of diesel, sweat, and human waste. Crewmen suffered from skin rashes, headaches, and exhaustion from the poor air quality and constant stress. The film also glosses over the high casualty rate and the psychological toll of living in a steel tube for months on end. The clean-shaven, stoic sailors on screen were a far cry from the often bearded, haggard, and terrified men of the real submarine service. The film is a masterpiece of tension, but it is a tension that has been cleaned up for a 1950s audience. Number 2. A real submarine commander appeared in the film. The film's quest for authenticity went so far as to include a real-life submarine hero in the cast. The role of the submarine's chief, the chief of the boat, is a small but crucial part, representing the experienced backbone of the crew. What audiences did not know was that this role was played by Don Dubbins, but the man he was based on and who consulted on the role was a real-life World War II submarine chief. Furthermore, the film's technical advisor, Captain Edward Beach, was not just behind the scenes. He makes a brief, uncredited cameo appearance as a naval officer on the pier. This decision to include the real men who lived this life added another layer of authenticity to the production. It was not just actors playing sailors, it was real sailors looking on, ensuring their story was told with respect and accuracy. Number 1, the film's real tragedy was the fate of the author's father. The film's story of a commander seeking revenge for a lost ship is pure fiction, but it was inspired by a real, personal tragedy. The novel's author, Captain Edward L. Beach Jr., wrote the story as a tribute to his own father, Captain Edward L. Beach Sr. What audiences did not know was that Beach Sr. was also a highly decorated naval officer. He was the captain of the battleship United States Ship California when it was attacked and sunk at Pearl Harbor. Though he survived the attack, he was blamed for the ship's losses and died in 1943, his career and reputation tarnished. The younger Beach's novel, and by extension the film, is a deeply personal work of catharsis. The character of Captain Richardson, obsessed with redeeming himself after losing his first ship, is a fictionalized version of the story Beach wished for his own father. The film's emotional core is not just about naval warfare. It is a son's loving attempt to rewrite history and give his father the heroic redemption he was denied in real life. Bonus fact, The author set a submerged record that still stands. The most shocking secret is not in the film, but in the incredible real-life story of the man who wrote it, Captain Edward L. Beach, Jr. The film's author and technical advisor was not just a decorated veteran. He was a record-breaking pioneer of the sea deep. What absolutely no one connected to the film publicly discussed was that in 1960, just 2 years after the movie's release, Beach commanded the United States ship Triton on a historic voyage. He led the first ever submerged circumnavigation of the Earth. The Triton, a nuclear-powered submarine, remained underwater for 60 days and 21 hours, traveling over 36,000 nautical miles without surfacing once. This incredible feat of seamanship and engineering demonstrated the true potential of the nuclear submarine and set a world record that still stands today for a submerged voyage. The man who gave the world Run Silent, Run Deep was not just writing about silent running, he was living on the cutting edge of it. A real-life hero whose actual accomplishments were even more extraordinary than the fiction he created. Run Silent, Run Deep was not just a movie, it was a collision of Hollywood royalty. A film born from the real trauma of war and the very real ego of its stars. The tension we feel on screen is not just great acting, it is the authentic, toxic energy of a set at war with itself. It is a film that sacrificed the comfort of its stars to create a feeling of unbearable claustrophobia, and in doing so, captured a truth about the psychological horror of war. The film's legacy is that it proved a war movie does not need explosions to be explosive. The real battle is fought in the minds of the men in command, in the silence between the depth charges, and in the crushing pressure of the deep. If this deep dive into a classic shocked you, hit that like button and subscribe for more secrets behind the films you only think you know. And remember, in the silent depths, the greatest enemy is the one you bring with you.